This is the Brave New Coin Crypto Conversation, hosted by Andy Pickering.
Hi everyone, Andy Pickering here. I'm your host and welcome to the Crypto Conversation, a Brave New Coin podcast where we talk to the people building the future in the Bitcoin, blockchain and cryptocurrency space. My guest today is Evan Cheng. Evan is the CEO at Mysten Labs, and Mysten is building the foundational infrastructure to help accelerate the adoption of Web3, and they aim to help set the standard for performance, scalability, usability, and safety across Web3 infrastructure. Welcome to the show, Evan.
Hey, thanks for having me. Great meeting you, Andy.
Great meeting you as well, Evan. And what's interesting, of course, to start the show, what's interesting about Mysten Labs is, well, a number of things really, but one of the interesting things, Evan, is that the founding team, I believe there are four of you, you recently left positions at what used to be called Facebook, now called Meta. So I believe you guys were, part of the team behind DM and Novi, Facebook's digital wallet. So that's probably a nice place to start. So why don't you please introduce yourself, give us a little bit of the context as to your career path, what you were doing at Meta/Facebook, and how that brings us to Mysten Labs. Lots going on, Evan.
Yeah. No, happy to. So, I've been around for a while. I've been in the tech industry for very many years. So dropped out PhD, got into a startup, and so on and so forth. So finally arrived at Apple. So I spent 10 years at Apple, basically started out as just kind of a compiler engineer, did a bunch of stuff, LVN, even got an ACM Systems Award for it, which is quite rewarding. And that sort of sets me up for my future, my career. And so spent 10 years at Apple and then was recruited to, back then was called Facebook. So when I joined Facebook, I was the director of program language and runtime. So I was running everything related to program language, be it for, the Maxix server or all the way down to mobile, phone technology, runtime, like we built, the most fastest, most advanced JavaScript engines, or even things like, kind of hardware accelerator, the software side of things. So everything related to that, a lot of the cool developer tools stuff as well. So this is about 2.5 years into my career at Facebook. That's 2 years when I started getting interest in cryptocurrency. It's still very early. I'll say my initial reaction was like, oh my God, what is this thing? There's a lot of project out there that looks kind of scammy. This is probably not something, that interesting. But then I kind of got red pilled. Okay, but now I see, there's all these potential, of decentralization can bring, to products, to society, to interaction, to financial applications, and so on and so forth. But then I dig deeper and say, wow, the implementation is still very early. There's a lot of things to improve upon. And you can imagine with my programming language background, I immediately look at Solidity and EVM. Was a little bit, not particularly pleased with how it was, on many angles. And so part of the thing that got me really interested in working in this space is I can do a lot better, right? I've been in this space for a long time. I know all the people who know how to design programming language. We can design something better. So I really seriously look into doing a startup or joining a startup, and had quite a few opportunities there. But then this is when the Facebook's own Libra project started, and and I decided to stay at Facebook to sort of lead parts of the effort. So my role at Meta for the last 3.5 years, I was the senior director of Novi Research. So Novi is the subsidiary of Facebook, or part of the Facebook that's responsible for the blockchain, for the Libra project, but as well as the wallet integration into the Facebook products at the time. My team focused on DM mostly, we focus on the advanced R&D side of the house. So most of the work related to programming language, to smart contract platform, to building the formal verification tool, to designing the consensus protocols, everything related to cryptography were my team's responsibility. So I was able to assemble a team of world-class experts. These are really, really, I think at one point in time we have like 7 kind of professors, some very, very big names in various different spaces being part of the team. A lot of the most senior people inside Facebook and recruit other additional senior engineers to join us. And we did a lot of great stuff, basically. So that's sort of the story up to that point. So you probably seen the difficulty that we had since then, right? So Libra was rebranded to DM, and DM still hasn't launched for a number of reasons. And so we look around and say, well, this is not good, because for my team, we basically, for my team in particular, we're mostly done with the DM technology a year and a half ago, I think. We've been doing a lot of the cutting edge work, even far beyond DM core, and we just wanted to, to build products, right? Honestly, we look around the opportunity and we were going to touch on this a little bit more. It's like, there's a lot of improvement yet to be done, especially in the infrastructure space, to realize the potential of Web3. And we feel like we need to bring it to the world. So that's why we my co-founder and myself say, well, let's just have a go at it. Let's see how it works, and that's sort of the genesis of Mysten Labs.
Yeah, fantastic, Evan. And look, I'm really excited to dig into Mysten Labs, but I have to ask you, because it's not often we get the, I suppose, inside perspective from someone who spent time at Facebook over a long period of time, deep within I suppose the blockchain-based projects. So, I'd love to get your perspectives on, what you feel, even though you've now obviously left Facebook/Meta, what did the likes of yourself and your team, perhaps even and your colleagues, think about Facebook's pivot to Meta and, Mr. Zuckerberg's focus on moving towards, I suppose, the metaverse, while, you and your team obviously have done very much the same thing, but you've done it in a much more nimble way, and that you've gone to, you've left the belly of the beast, as it were, and you're starting a Web3 startup, right from kind of the ground up. So, I just love to kind of hear your reflections, really.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple questions here. Let me start by sharing a bit of my experience, my perspective of the DM project. It's a very ambitious project, and when we started, we knew there's a chance where there would be external pressure that prevented from launching. So on many parts, we actually did it right. We decided everything has to be open source from day one. Essentially, all the research work we did were published at top conferences. So we wanted to make sure whatever happens, the core of our innovation, the innovation doesn't just die with us if we can't launch. So that part is great. It was a grind, right? It was a grind trying to working with regulators in an area where regulation was not clear. So we spent a lot of effort working with the regulators, and ultimately it's very unfortunate. It looks like we're a little bit stuck right now. So I honestly don't know what the future holds for that project, the rumors aside, but there seems to be a good chance that may not realize its possibility, which I feel very unfortunate. And I will urge people to dig into this deeper and really understand what's the crust of it. It's not, it's because, big company entity cannot build something that's decentralized and right, and that's the reason. It's much more nuanced than that. So I want to avoid political commentary on that, but I urge all the listener to actually kind of dig a little bit deeper and understand why it was prevented from happening, and what were the pushback from regulators
and one sentence, Evan. It's simply that I think too much pressure from probably the US. They didn't like the look of a stable coin that they didn't control.
Right.
It's more nuanced than that, but that's the headline.
Right. Stablecoin regulation is not there yet. Right. So and okay, so go get a banking license, but in this case, as you read in one of the news articles, like, well, they pressure the banking partner to stop issuance, which sort of goes against the spirit of the regulation. So it's more nuanced than that. Okay, so pivot to Metaverse. I think it's really is not a pivot, right? If you look at what Meta, Facebook has been doing for the last few years, we invest a lot. The company invests a lot into Oculus, or Facebook Reality Lab, or how it's called right now. So Metaverse is a fairly broad term. Everybody have different definition of it. My view on that is VR, AR, Oculus are sort of the UX aspects of Metaverse, right? It's how you interact with a virtual world, right? How you present a virtual world. The other aspect of Metaverse is sort of ownership, right? There are many other aspects as well, as we learn as we build out this, we learn more about Metaverse, the ecosystem, and all that, right? If you think about what it means is, well, I always want to go back to the book or the movie Ready Player One, right? If I'm jumping into a world, I'm taking my stuff with me, right? My guns, my weapons, my shields, my special powers, everything, my battle scars, my experience, right? So the ownership layer needs to be universal. I can take everything with me, and I can take it back into the real with me. Like, it's blurring the lines between the various virtual worlds as well as the real world, right? It should just be one. And that to me is the Metaverse. And there's the UX layer, right? The UX, now we can wear a goggle, or we can have mixed reality. That's one, but then there's also the asset ownership aspect of it as well. So for Meta, I think it makes perfect sense, given the investment, given the mission of the company is really connecting people, build communities and all that, right? For them to invest a lot in this. And before I exit from Meta, we were involved in the sort of thinking about the ownership layers as well. So I know that work is still continuing as well.
Fantastic. All right. Well, you've done we've talked about Meta, we've talked about Facebook. We understand a little bit about your framing of Web3 and the Metaverse. So let's hear the story of Mysten Labs then.
Sure.
Evan, sure. What is Mysten Labs? And
Right. So my co-founder and I have a lot of ideas and a lot of core technology and a lot of learnings already sort of under our belts, right? So when we started this, we look around and say, well, it's cool to have all these ideas and technologies, but what deliver the most impact, right? What is the goal? What is the mission of the company? And is this one of those companies that build one network and that's it, right? That's a focus on network, just kind of keep on building on that one? Or do we envision ourselves as being more than that? So we believe we will keep on building infrastructure in the space. And just like the cloud infrastructure has evolved over the years, right? All new applications come along, are empowered by new innovation at the infrastructure layer, right? You need to have CDN, to have richer, web experience. You need to have streaming infrastructure to be able to handle video and game streaming, right? Remember back in the day, audio streaming was considered hard, right? Only a couple of companies have to roll their own infrastructure to do that. How can we get from there for Web3, very early stage, fairly basic product, to something that's just seamless, right? People don't even need to know this is Web2 or Web3. They just know this is the kind of product experience that wasn't possible before. And that's our North Star. So for us, we want to keep building. We want to go where the difficulty, the pain points are for product builder, and say, here's the infrastructure that make your job easier. You can now build things that previously you cannot imagine, you cannot build. So that's now North Star. So operationally, we are building this pipeline of a lot of different kind of projects, a lot of different products, so to speak. We're leveraging a lot of research. And to turn research into product, first we need to develop the engineering components, the artifacts. So you have seen those with, we're working with Cello and Similar on something called Novel. This is a major component, major redesign of mempool and consensus layer. And we're basically building up, finishing the development, using live systems to show and to learn the experience of integration, to finish the development, also just kind of vetting. Does it do what we think it would do in real world scenario? So that's very important for us, right? Take it from lab condition into real world. And then at the same time, we're productizing products using technology that has already gone through that development process. We're certain of them, but building a product from technical components means you need to add a lot of other layers, developer experience, documentation, how the different components come together, what the tooling is like, and so on and so forth, that require working with different sets of developer. And once that you launch a product, that product goes into growth mode, right? You keep on building on top of it, you grow the ecosystem, you add new functionality, you improve different aspects of it. So perhaps unique about Mysten Lab is this, right? We're operating like that. We have this pipeline going. We're building out the pipeline. You're going to see us keep on building over the years. We like to, envision Mysten Lab to be this, long-lasting company that's just going to keep on building infrastructure that developers
Nice.
need.
All right. Well, I want to get to NFTs, Evan, but before we do that, you said at the beginning of the show that I think when you first started to dabble into crypto, you first started to dance around the rabbit hole, you looked at Ethereum, EVMs, and Solidity, and you weren't very impressed, right? As a someone with kind of a deep programming and code background. So I suppose I'd love to get your perspective on where we are at the moment with all these, I suppose, competing layer one smart contract chains. And Ethereum's kind of, Ethereum's got this massive head start, but also a bit stuck because, it's kind of 1 foot in the past, 1 foot in the future, whereas there's an advantage for anyone starting a new chain today. And, particularly all these incredibly talented people like yourself, Evan, who are just coming into Web3 now with this, deep knowledge base and new ideas. So I'd love to just, kind of get your high level take on where we are in these kind of smart contract ecosystems and how you approach it.
Yeah, that's a long question.
Well, high level is fine.
Yes. Obviously, Ethereum lead the way, right? And I'll say today, Ethereum probably will forever have a very important place in the ecosystem because it's designed to be permissionless, highly decentralized, has a huge fan base, a lot of assets on it, and all that. ETH itself is almost like a currency, right? When people think about buying NFTs, they think about how much is my NFT worth in terms of ETH, right? That's probably not the case with about any other platform. So I think Ethereum is a special case and it deserving so because it's OG, right? But if you look at everything else that's come after it, by and large, they all look and feel somewhat similar in a lot of ways. You have a storage layer, that's a ledger. You have, consensus. You have mempool, or in some cases you bypass mempool. But then you have a smart contract layer on top, and they all, try different ways to scaling them. Either through, kind of engineering excellence, bypassing mempool, storing bigger machines, or trying to parallelize execution in certain ways. Or some are trying sharding. Some are doing things like subnet that's sort of like redundant kind of infrastructure kind of into one, right? So you have almost like multiple chains into one. So there are a lot of interesting ideas, but by and large they look kind of similar at a 10,000 foot view. And one area that's sort of, in my opinion, holding back at least for more developers to come in is smart contract programming. I think EVM and Solidity is still the dominant language, and the smart contract runtime, and that's a problem in my opinion. And there's a reason, and I think that's a bigger reason why there's only maybe 10,000 developers that are comfortable with Solidity, if that, right? A couple of things, right? The language has too many attack vectors. Basically, anytime you have dynamic behavior, dynamic dispatch, fallback function, delegation, all those things, these are being exploited over and over for hacks. And Solidity is a language is not statically analyzable. So there's a limit on what you can do with tooling to find the bugs. So you end up with this new industry that didn't happen in any other software industry. You have people auditing contracts, so now you get into this kind of weird kind of flow where you develop your contract, then you have to send it over to some firm to audit them, and that can be a very extensive process. And that doesn't happen anywhere else, even some mission critical software, right? So I can talk about our solution to that. We're taking a completely different approach, but I just want to point out Solidity had this problem, and EVM, given the way it's constructed, given the data model, has a bunch of other restrictions, especially also related to performance, because it's basically something that's very hard to parallelize. You have all these shared states, So to us, this is a huge kind of, it's one of the big issues that holding back sort of a mainstream developer adoption. We like to change that as well. So I'm not going to say, which layer ones are interesting versus the other one. A lot of them are interesting. They all trying different ideas. They all, sort of kind of progressing the technology are improving in one way or the other, be it throughput or latency or some other aspects. But it doesn't seem like there's this kind of major leap into something that we can all just build all kinds of applications that we imagine, like going back to this metaverse kind of vision. So I'll say by and large, they are very good for financial transactions. So that doesn't really require keeping a lot of states. I think in a lot of ways you can almost say that there's a product market fit for DeFi type of application that has shown by and large they work, right? Occasionally the systems go down and get hacked, but that aside, you can kind of sort of see where it's going. It can work for that kind of applications, but then if you look at more sort of other kinds of application that's even larger scale or require manipulation with a lot of objects that may require kind of retaining more information, richer data sets require, then these infrastructure kind of not as well suited for those.
Yeah, and if that's the case, then Evan, well, let's talk about NFTs, because NFTs are a really good way to frame all this, because NFTs are, I suppose, one of the kind of the early primitives of Web3, and obviously, NFTs are kind of in some ways dominating the conversation, if not also the market at the moment. So I think you guys have quite a unique, if not approach, you have a unique vision for how you see the future capabilities of kind of, highly composable dynamic NFTs, which sounds really exciting to me. And I think that's where NFTs are going. A lot of people have of course, their own visions of how we get there. So yeah, let's hear Mysten's. What's the future of NFTs, and yeah, what are you guys building to make that happen?
Yeah. In going back to the earlier conversation about metaverse, right? So the vision we have is NFT can be used to model any assets, and the assets should be able to kind of essentially the history, the its entire duration, its life, so to speak, right? If I want to use a word to describe it, the life of an asset should be captured on blockchain, right? Because now that you can use that as the ownership layer, everything, all the truth, it's a source of truth. So when the assets go into this virtual world or in the real world or into other kinds of worlds that yet to be discovered, it will always be real, right? Because you have all the information with you, right? I want to know if I have an NFT that represent, let's say, my avatar, my again, Ready Player One, right? My avatar, my belongings, my they should be the same anywhere you go. It shouldn't be I have to go into this new world and everything gets reset, or have to reacquire the new assets in every world.
Yes.
We're not going to get there, quickly.
No.
But that's where we should be thinking about going
Yes.
potentially for this. So for that to happen, and then you look at the current infrastructure of NFT. The current infrastructure of NFT is so basic, right? It contains essentially URL to some static assets. Most of the time, a JPEG or PNG or that kind of image file, or a music track or something in MP4, MP3 or whatever different form of music format. That's it, right? Or right? You can say, oh, I can represent it as a real estate. So okay, that's cool. But if you want to take the asset into the virtual world, what does that mean? And what if I want to make some changes to it, right? It's like I buy a house that come with furnitures, and then now if I want to change the furniture inside, do I essentially need to burn the NFT and then mint a new one? I mean, that's silly, right? This is where the limitation become very apparent, right? In a game, if I have an asset, it should capture all the information that accumulate in the game, right? If I level up, that should reflect immediately on the blockchain in the NFT. If I acquire a new ring, it should be composed. Now I have two NFT composed into one. It's my character with the ring, special ring NFT. So composability, the ability to change certain states of the NFT, while we're not violating the security principle of it, right? So ownership is still immutable, still controlled by the key holder. That doesn't change, but the content of NFT needs to change. And it needs to change in such a way where there's no limitation. So you need to be able to store massive amount of data, metadata along with the NFT. You need to be able to make updates instantaneously, as close to real time as possible. You need to be able to handle all of them, a lot of them, make a lot of changes at the same time. So that's throughput, that's performance, that's storage, and there's also data modeling. How do you model assets like these type of things? So that's where the current infrastructure doesn't allow this, and that's how we're thinking about addressing the problem, and that's the pain point we're solving right now, working with developer to build new kinds of experience, new kind of products with this.
And what do you have any? I suppose kind of just interested in your personal view on, I suppose the current NFT marketplace, the kind of NFT projects that are doing well. Is it in a bubble, if you like? What do you like and what do you not like about the kind of the current NFT situation?
Well, I'm a huge fan and actually a collector of storing NFT, right? Because I do, for example, I own a couple Bored Apes. I own Clone X, a few other NFTs. They're interesting, right? They're really interesting. This is really kind of new asset class that doesn't exist before, right? It's new kinds of art, that clearly are resonating with people. And it's not just because people making money from it, right? People really like them and feel connected to them, and that makes it a collectible and make it an asset class. And some of them are useful to represent, existing art, right? Digitized version of existing art. Some are created specifically for NFT, and I think that's great, right? That bring more artists and creators into the space, and allow them to kind of monetize their work in a different way, and it allow fans like a collector like us, like myself, be able to purchase these assets. Previously, it's hard to discover them. So I love all of that. So what I don't love is, one, there's too many derivative projects, right? I don't even know how many different versions of different kinds of ape NFTs collections are out there. Clearly, some of them are not of the same quality. Clearly, some of them are just there to, for a quick buck, confuse people or hype up and buy them, and nothing happened with them. So I think that the market was sorted out by itself over time. And that's fine. I don't know if it's a bubble, and maybe it's an isolated bubble in some aspect, but true real things are happening at the same time. And for example, I think Bored Ape has built out the community, has a huge following. It's a cultural phenomenon. It's a real thing. It's not going to go away. The price, the valuation may fluctuate depending on market condition, but it's a real thing. Some others perhaps not, but that's normal with any new market. What I really don't like is, I think the current infrastructure really limit the creativities of the artists, of the creators, right? Let's take this example of a generative art. Right now, the generative art are generated ahead of time, right? They are kind of a sort of random number generator, and you have these kind of number traits, you have all these parts, and depending on the lock, this NFT may have rare traits and this one may not, right? That's a little bit artificial, right? Wouldn't be better if this can be determined by utility, right? Would it be better if the generative aspect can happen later on chain, even with smart contract? What if it can change? What if you can compose them together, right? Coming back to that, what if creator can build, things that's meant to go together later on, or can be combined in new ways to form new kinds of assets, new kinds of art. That's the part I think we're working, we're focusing on. Is that how do we unlock the potential? How do we unlock the creativities of the creators? And then how do we make sure NFT can be used for utility as well? Can they be in-game assets? Can game developers say, I have finished designing my artwork, my assets, so I can release them as NFTs. I can engage with fans, and the fans own these NFTs, and they can then interact with the game developer, with the studio, maybe with a website, with mini games, and they can be truly engaged. And with the engagement, they may unlock new traits and new characteristic of the NFT character, and then later on they can bring their character into the game to play. And it should just be naturally happening like that. Then you can start kind of opening up new horizons, new business model, new way of building products. You can even imagine there will be creators that focus on building assets. And later on, there's enough people owning these assets and say, hey, let's make a game around this population. These people have this kind of assets. Could be everybody's designing a different, a creator designing a whole bunch of different weapons and swords and poles and you name it. And fans can, jump into arena and battle, and these things changes over time. And right, there's so much potential, so much things that we can potentially unlock, but the infrastructure is holding them back now. And I have a lot more to say about this. I don't want to trivialize the problem of taking one asset in one world into another world, because we can solve the infrastructure in, sort of compatibility issue, but we cannot, there's a product level compatibility issue that needs to be solved separately. So I think it's very important to have the infrastructure, the toolkit ready, and then work with a product builder to really think through all the possibilities that's yet to be unlocked.
Well, let's just finish off this part of the podcast then, Evan. So you guys, in December, I think you raised around 36 million in funding from Andreessen Horowitz and Coinbase Ventures. So, really, that's obviously a big tick of approval from some heavyweight backers who obviously believe in you and your team's ability to build out some of this infrastructure. So I'd love to just understand, what kind of runway that gives you, and when can we actually expect your team to begin to ship some product, if you like? What Sure. Do you see ahead?
Yeah. So we raised the first round, equity round, that gave us good enough money to build out a fairly substantial core team to realize our vision. And I think that's easily will support us even in a bear market for 2-3 years if we're not wasting money. But we're moving very fast. The team is growing tremendously. We're able to hire some really great people. Given the track record of the team, we're able to really find great people. To answer your question, we actually are launching a layer 1 smart contract platform in 2 months. We moved really fast. If the company officially formed in November, we're ready to launch a testnet at the end of March at GDC. We're launching a smart contract platform. We're showing off the testnet. We're showing off the developer SDK and a lot of examples and demos, and some are even built by our partners. So that's coming. So you don't have to wait too long.
And what's the name of that platform, Evan? What's the name of that?
That's one thing we haven't done. Turnout naming is one of those hardest things. It's like you have to find a name you like that represents, that fits the product, and then you have to figure out if it has already been trademarked, or if somebody else owned the domains and the Twitter handles and all that. So give us some time. We're trying to finalize that aspect first. But yeah, right now we have internal code name, and we're moving very fast on building out the tech and the product, and now we're getting ready to get the red SDK in place in good shape, and the developer documentation in good shape, and start sharing with some of our early partners.
And
so it's very exciting.
Is it optimized for any one particular use case? What are you sort of leaning into most heavily?
So it is a general purpose, layer 1 smart contract platform.
Okay.
You can build any kind of applications with, and in fact, we have different partners from different industries. Now, since we spend a lot of time talking about NFTs, there's a component to this is very much doing all the things I talked about before. Kind of made ability to model any assets with NFT is a big deal. The ability to store a massive amount of data on chain and very cheaply is important. The ability to have extremely high throughput, very low latency is important as well. So it's all that. But it's not a chain that you can only use for this application, this type of application, or that kind of application.
All right. Well, I'm going to keep an eye on this. Evan, sounds very exciting. Let's go to a very quick break, and then we will come back. We'll have some fun. We'll finish off with the very famous Crypto Conversation Hot Take Round.
In today's crypto market, the team at Brave New Coin are the sector's leading builders of custom crypto indices. BNC's powerful indexing engine draws on Brave New Coin's premium data to calculate high-frequency intraday and end-of-day indices for a wide range of index products. BNC's custom indices help you to gain exposure to the crypto assets class and track your performance against the market without having to become a stock picker. Not sure what you need? A Brave New Coin consultant can help you assess your requirements. Contact BNC today to find out more.
All right, we're back and I'm with Evan Chang. Evan, as you've heard, is the CEO, one of the co-founders at Mysten Labs, building the infrastructure layer for Web3 and looking to potentially ship a new layer 1 smart contract platform in the near future. Sounds pretty cool. Evan, I like to finish each podcast with a quick round of rapid fire crypto conversation hot takes. Are you up for it?
Sure.
All right.
Go for it.
Sounds good, Evan. This is going to be fun. Excited to hear what you have to say. The first question is, where do you sit on the Bitcoin maximalist to multi-coin opportunist spectrum? And I guess here we haven't talked about Bitcoin at all. So in the context of that, just love to hear your thoughts on Bitcoin as well, and versus other chains.
I'm a fan of Bitcoin. Actually hold a fair amount of Bitcoins. So it's been painful a couple of weeks from that side. Look, Bitcoin is a different kind of asset. I think it fulfills its mission as something of a store value, and we have yet to see whether it can realize potential as money. Because of volatility and all that. But I think, the way I personally look at it is digital gold, right? It's another way, it's another asset similar to gold. Utility, there are utilities, maybe not as naturally a natural fit for certain utilities as, say, other cryptocurrencies, but it does have some utility, payments ultimate utility after all. So yeah, I'm a fan of Bitcoin. I'm not sure, I'm keeping an eye on all the efforts around Bitcoin, kind of DeFi on Bitcoin. Is it possible? Is the Lightning Network going to become mainstream? I'm keeping an eye on all that.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right. What would you say then, Evan, is your firmest conviction crypto opinion?
That's easy. I think crypto is real. I think crypto Web3 is real. And I know there's a lot of people who don't believe this is because we haven't, as an industry, haven't done as good a job of just showing actual, have people realize is wow, I'm benefiting from this, right? This is the new kind of product experience that I never have before, because there's too much, perhaps a little bit too much tribalism. On one side is believer, on the other side is a non-believer. They all, sort of, on one side is too much talking about, the vision, what is possible, and not enough of demonstration of those real use cases. On the other side is well, because I haven't seen these use cases, I'm going to be skeptical. So both sides are right, both sides are wrong. And I think it's up to us to just show what's possible. So my biggest conviction is this is real. I have no doubt in my mind, in a few years, people will just benefit from Web3 decentralized technology. And most of the time, they don't even need to know if this is a Web2 or Web3 product.
Yeah, actually, that it reminds me of a tweet of yours that I saw yesterday and retweeted because I enjoyed it. I'm just going to find it real quick, Evan. You said, announcing Web 3.1, a new code name, A Quiet Place 3. It's the same as Web 3.0, but without the fighting, which is...
I find the fighting a little bit funny, and it really doesn't kind of advance the conversation, right? No. It's really set aside the difference and actually kind of move forward together, because we definitely need the builders who are not yet red-pilled as Web3 builders, so let's not alienate them, but for us the challenge or responsibility is to actually show those examples, right? Actually, it's this is possible, this is not vaporware, and let's not snipe at each other constantly, say this is better than that, right? For industry this early, so nascent, thumping the chest and say this is the future of blah 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 is kind of silly, because technology always move forward what is new and cool today will probably be outdated very soon. So
exactly,
any of those speculation is just silly, right?
And well, on that note, Evan, Bill Gates famously said that we tend to overestimate what we can accomplish in 2 years and underestimate what we can accomplish in 10. So look, as a software engineer, programmer, coder, you'll be all too familiar with this, but with that in mind, whatever you like, blockchain, NFTs, what does it all look like in 10 years time?
In 10 years time, I think payment using cryptocurrency is definitely going to be everywhere. It's all, and you generalize it, it's payment. It's not just payment, it's asset transfer. Fundamentally, that's one of the key functions of all this technology. How do you efficiently capture value? How do you efficiently move assets, the value in the assets around? So this is, very, very key strengths of this technology, and nothing else can stop that from happening. I'm convinced of that. Also in gaming, in commerce, in social media, and social network, and many other kind of product we haven't even imagined. I think it's just going to use blockchain technology in some way. I think again, this comes back to Web3 technology products shouldn't look fundamentally different than Web2 product, right? It will just enable other kind of new kind of experience that was not possible before. So maybe ownership is the killer app for games. Maybe this is a new way, I don't want to say this, right? But it's like back in the days when DLC was first introduced, people were like poo-pooing that it's just another way to extract more money from gamers because you could have finished your game first. Why do you release bits of it as DLC? But later on, people kind of realize it because the developer are doing a better job planning. They're just releasing the property in stages. So maybe the NFT, the blockchain, cryptocurrency can enable some of these new business model, new kind of product experience like that, where I can release my assets first and make sure my assets are utility outside the game. And that can start forming an economy around that even earlier. Or maybe now we can have creators starting to create assets first without worrying about what sort of game experience that's going to come about later. They can just focus on doing what they love to do, create what they love to do. And that the things that's going to naturally happen. So I think it's just going to be pervasive. It's going to be every part of our product, our experience, and we're going to blur the lines, starting to blur the line between the real world and the virtual worlds. I don't think we're going to get to Ready Player One in 10 years just yet, but maybe we make some progress towards that.
All right. Well, very nicely said, Evan. The flip side, of course, is sci-fi author William Gibson, who famously said that the future is already here. It's just not evenly distributed. So with that in mind, can you think of an example of the future being here right now, but most people just aren't really aware of it?
That's interesting. I think blockchain being used in the back end of financial transactions are already happening, and most people don't recognize it. There's also a lot of asset class are being fractionalized and presented as any normal kind of investment opportunities or asset purchase, and people probably don't recognize it. So there's already some real world use cases that people are benefiting from, and they don't know it. Yeah. So that's one example. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Well, an example of that, just kind of extending that. I was reading something earlier today. With the kind of, we all know that NFT adoption is just going to continue to explode because they're just so compelling. You talked about this before. People just find it so interesting, and because some of the I guess let's call them blue chips, you know, CryptoPunks, the apes, fluffs, things like that that are limited to 10,000, which seems a lot, but on a global scale is absolutely nothing. So, of course, people are going to start to fractionalize those kind of NFTs very soon, right?
Yeah, that's already happened. You know, it's about giving people a piece of an asset they otherwise cannot afford or don't have access to, right? So that's really, really already happening. And I've talked to potential partners about the fine art kind of a world as well. They're limited by the current infrastructure that doesn't keep enough of the record. There's no kind of copyright infringement checks and that sort of thing. But the potential is definitely there for, you know, everyone to buy $100 worth of Monet in the future, and that would be exciting. And I think that's generally good. Those kind of use cases will definitely happen very soon.
All right, time to zoom out, time to get weird as we start to finish off. Evan, what do you see as the long-term future for the human race? Do you see dystopia or utopia?
Oh boy, I wish I have an interesting view on this. I'm sort of like, okay, let me focus on technology and you know, I'm not a student of you know, kind of, you know, history and you know, social evolution and what. Look, but I'm still optimistic, right? That's what I'm about. I'm a builder. I have to be optimistic. I am actually naturally optimistic about where technology is going to take us. So I'll say it's utopia. I believe that's what's going to happen. You know, the world is not a great place right now. There's a lot of bad things that are happening, and there's and I don't want to say that we're working on something that's going to change the world. By definition, everything we work on, anybody work on, change the world in some way. But I could believe the collective wisdom, the collective drive of this the Web3 builders will have a positive contribution to the world. We need to get there. Yeah. So I'm definitely on the more optimistic side of that.
I love it. All right, let's finish this off. Evan, finally, what is your favorite science fiction, a book, film, a TV show, or universe?
I think I already referred to it. Ready Player One is the thing that I keep on going back to, as opposed to Snow Crash, because it's a bit more optimistic, Hollywood ending, and sort of more approachable. It's just fun. Like, I kind of like that fun, you know, kind of elements of it. I like everything about it. You know, I believe, you know, I mean, that world presented in the book, in the movie, is somewhat dystopia. I want a more utopia version of it, basically, right? Not one giant universe controlled by one company, you know, everybody's trapping it, but lots of these kind of you know, these worlds, and we can go anywhere we want and open our horizon, open our, you know, minds, and do everything that's possible. So I have to go back to that one. You know, you know, I'm actually more of a fantasy person rather than a science fiction person too. So I don't have a lot of great examples. That.
I love it. All right. Thank you so much for coming on the show and talking to us today, Evan. I really enjoyed the conversation. Nothing else to say, really, except to hand the metaphorical microphone back to you. Please tell the people where they can go to find you on your various platforms, Twitter and so on, and where they should go to follow what you guys are building at Mysten Labs.
Yeah, so my Twitter handle is Evan, EVAN, Web3. So that's, you know, really easy to remember. Please follow, and I'm trying to be a bit more vocal and do a better job explaining what we're building, how we're thinking, what's our view on everything. So hopefully you get something from following me on Twitter. And for Mysten Labs, our Twitter handle is Mysten_Labs. And Mysten is the word mist, MYST. That was a game that I really like many years ago. We just added EN since we cannot, you know, for engineering. So Mysten_Labs is where you want to go to follow the, you know, the Twitter tweets and all that. And our website is, well, mystenlabs.com. Go there. We'll have a lot more announcements coming. We have a blog post. We link to it that talks about high level of vision, where we're going with the company. And we have, you can learn about read all the articles that are written about Mysten, all the work we're doing with our partners already. There will be a lot more coming soon, where we're in the middle of trying to, get everything into a good place. I think that's it. There will be a lot more coming. I can't wait to share. We can't wait to share with the world what we're building. Yeah, that's it. Thank you so much, Andy, for having me today. Really enjoyed talking to you.
Me too, Evan. Thanks so much. All the best, and bye for now.
Bye-bye. Take care.
Man, how about that? Wow, that was Evan Cheng from Mysten Labs. And yeah, that was great. Evan could talk, couldn't he? And yeah, just as well, because, well, very insightful guy, fascinating guy. Very interesting background, and very interesting future, I reckon. So yeah, that was a good one. Hope you enjoyed that. I know I certainly did. Yeah, hey, that's us for today, team. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to subscribe to the Crypto Conversation in whatever podcast app you are using. Give us a rating in Apple, iTunes, or the podcast app. Give us a 5-star rating. Even leave a review if you're still listening and you enjoyed the show. Would always appreciate that. All right. Thanks, team. We're out of here. This was the Crypto Conversation for Brave New Coin.